In this tutorial, we will have a look on how we can create this shooting. As you can see, we can shoot on our enemy game object, and if you want to grab the source code of this game and projects file, I will give a link in the description. You will find on it basically on Patreon with a membership. You can check that out. So without further delay, let's dive into this topic. Let's select the player game object in the hierarchy, and let's open up the player script by double clicking on it, or you can create a separated script by as well if you want. So let's open up the player script by double clicking on it, and we will go to update function. Let's do it somewhere around here. So we're gonna do if we will check if we're gonna check for some input. So if input dot get mouse button down, and the button we're looking for is the left mouse button, so we need to pass 0. And if you pass right over here instead of 1 instead of 0, it's basically means the right mouse button, but we're gonna check for left one, so that's why I'm gonna pass 0 and make some curly brackets. So if we clicking the left mouse button means if input dot get mouse button down, and 0 means the if we just clicking the left mouse button, then what we want to shoot. So in order to shoot, what we will do, we're gonna create a function for shooting. So let's do it somewhere around here. You can do it anywhere you like. For function, we're gonna type void, and the function we're gonna create is shoot, something like that. Make first bracket and some curly brackets. So what we basically want to do, and let's call the shoot function over here. So if input dot get mouse button down 0, so let's call the shoot function over here, and we'll close that up with semicolon. And what we want to do inside this shoot function, we want to shoot out a ray from something over here, and if that ray collide with this enemy game object, then this enemy game object need to take damage. So that is the thing. And in order to shoot out the ray, we need to use this physics2d dot raycast, and this function right over here, as a first argument, it's gonna take the position from where we want to shoot out, and the second thing, it's gonna take the direction in which direction you want to shoot out. So we're gonna shoot out somewhere around here, and we will shoot out in the right direction. And third argument, it's gonna take the length of the ray, or basically the distance. So we're gonna specify some distance. And the fourth argument, it's gonna take the layer mask, basically which game object you want to target. In our case, I'm gonna target this enemy game object, so that's why I will set to enemy. So we need those variables, so before we just create or shoot out the ray. So let's make this one comment by double slash, and comment just don't interrupt our code. So we can just go to top of our class, and we can make the variable over here. So we're gonna make it private, in private, and the first thing we need the position. So we're gonna type transform, and transform is responsible for position, and we can call this something like shoot point. So let's call it shoot point, and then close that up with semicolon. So this is a private field, so we're not gonna able to see this field underneath our player script, but we want to access it in our player script because we need the reference. That's why. So to make this public, what we basically have to do, we need to mark as serialized field. So basically make these square brackets and type serialized field in these brackets. And now even it's private, set to private, we still able to access that parameter underneath our player script. But only problem with this is that we cannot able to access this parameter or this variable through another class or another script. So that is the thing. And the second thing we need, so let's make another serialized field private, and we need the distance or the length of the ray, and we will shoot out in the right, so we don't need the variable for right. So we can float, that will be float, and we can call length ray or ray length, or let's call it instead distance. And fourth argument we need, so serialized field private, and that will be layer mask. So we need to type this layer mask, and we can call something like target layer, and then close that up with semicolon. Control S to save your code, And now let's move over to Unity, because we need those variable, or basically we have to assign those variable. So first thing, we need a point from where we want to shoot out. So we're gonna create a shoot point. So underneath those variables just gonna pop up right away our in underneath our player script. So now if we select our player game object, so as you can see in player script, we can see shoot point and it says none transform, basically empty. So what we will do, so let's select the player game object in the hierarchy, right click on player game object and create an empty child game object, and name that game object to something like shoot point. So I'm gonna call shoot point, and then go over select this move tool from here, and let's move it some top of this gun, somewhere around here we want to shoot out. So let's somewhere around basically here. And what we will do now, let's select the player game object and let's select the shoot point and drag it shoot point to shoot point field. As a distance, I'm gonna choose something around like 10, something like 10. As a target layer, I'm gonna choose enemy. So before you choose or some certain layer, make sure you just select the game object. So in my case, I'm gonna select this enemy game object, then go over to inspector and go over to top right says layer and it says default. So just click on that and then click on add layer and then name the layer what you want. I already have named it, as you can see over here. So go back to that game object one more time, basically select the game object in the hierarchy one more time, then go over to top right inspector and then says layer default. So just click right there and choose the layer whatever you just recently name it. So I'm going to choose this enemy and I'm going to click on this game object only on this object. Now I have assigned this enemy as a enemy layer, as you can see right over here in inspector. And now if we select player game object, as you can see target layer and it says nothing. So I'm gonna just click there and let's choose this enemy now. So that ray only gonna check for this enemy game object, and you can choose multiple layer if you want. You can just click and choose that. So let's go to script now and let's go to that shoot function and let's remove these two slashes. So this physics2d.raycast, as a first argument, it's gonna take the position from where we want to shoot out. So I'm gonna pass as a first argument the shoot point dot position, and we do know as a shoot point I have chosen basically this point. And if you want to choose an icon, you can select the shoot point, go over to inspector, click on this box and choose an icon. So I'm going to choose this one. So from that position I want to shoot out. And the second thing, it's going to take the direction. So I will write shoot point dot right. Shoot point dot right basically means whatever direction shoot point is facing. So you can see shoot point is facing right now in the right. So in this direction the ray will be shoot out. And third argument, it's gonna take the distance or the length of the ray. So we're gonna pass this distance, and we do know as a distance we have chosen 10 unit. So the length of the ray just gonna be 10. And the fourth argument, it's gonna take the layer mask. So we will pass target layer, and we do know as a target layer we only have chosen this enemy game object. So the ray only gonna check for this enemy game object, and make sure you just close that off with semicolon. So this ray right over here, sorry, this statement over here, it's gonna be true or false depending upon the ray is really colliding with the enemy game object or not. So we're shooting out the ray from this point in the right direction with distance, with some amount of distance. And if that ray, whenever we click the left mouse button, we're shooting out the ray from this shoot point. And if that ray really collide with this enemy game object, then this statement right over here, it's gonna give us a true value, else it will give us a false value. So let's store the result into another raycast hit 2d variable. Why? Because this is a ray, so that's why we need to type raycast hit 2d, and we can call this one something like hit and then set equal to this. So this hit right over here can be true or false depending upon if the ray really collide with this enemy game object or not. If the ray is not colliding, then we need to shooting in the air. So we will check in the next line, if hit is true, is equals to true, or you can leave it like this, it also means true. If that is the case, make some curly brackets. And so what we basically doing, firstly we just shooting out the ray at this position in the right direction with this much of distance and a target layer. So this function will be true if the ray is really colliding with this enemy game object. So that's why this hit right over here gonna be true, and if hit is true means we need to damage our enemy. So if the ray is really colliding with this enemy game object, that means we need to damage our enemy. For now let's print out a message. So if hit is true means the ray is really colliding with the enemy game object. So let's print out a message for now. So debug.log for printing out message, and we can say we're gonna, in quotation we're gonna say we damage or shoot on, and we can add top of that. So use this plus icon if you want to add a another custom message. So what we're going to do right over here, by hit parameter we can extract info whatever we hit with. So if the raid hit with this enemy game object, we can extract info about this enemy, like name of the enemy game object, tag of the enemy game object, anything we're looking for. So we're gonna, for now we're gonna print out the name of the game object. So we will go to hit, then transform, then dot name, and then close that up with semicolon. So basically we're going to that game object transform, and by transform we just accessing the name. Basically we just going over to this enemy game object and then accessing this transform, and by this transform we accessing the name, so which in case enemy 1. So this should be pop up shoot on and the name of the game object, which is enemy 1. So shoot on enemy 1 message should be pop out whenever we click the left mouse button. Make sure you just call the function, else this will not happen. So make sure you just call it whenever you click the left mouse button. So Control S to save your script. And now let's move over to Unity. So we should able to see a message just gonna pop up in the console, says shoot on and the name of the game object, which is enemy 1. So now if we select the console in the bottom, if you can find the console, go to window in the top, then scroll down, says general, and you can find the console right over here. And also you can see the shortcut key, which is Control Shift plus C. It's gonna bring up the console tab immediately. And now let's click on this play button in the top and have a look. So if we just click left mouse button, so as you can see, if we hit this pause button in the top and go over to console, we can see shoot on and the name of the game object, which in case enemy 1. So we shooting on enemy 1, and but the problem is that we're not able to see our we're not able to see our ray. To see our ray, we're gonna add a line renderer component. So basically what we have to do, we need to select the player game object in the hierarchy, go over to inspector, scroll down and click on this add component and search over here by typing line renderer component and attach that. So we can see, and now what we have to do, scroll down and go over to materials, and it says none material. So click right over here and search over here default material and just add that. And after doing that, go up a little bit and then go over to position right over here and make this larger, something like this. And now we are able to see, you can say, the line render component, as you can see. So we're gonna make the width something like this much. I'm gonna attach one more time. Let's remove this. Let's search for line renderer, and then I'm gonna move over to material and default sprites default. And now let's make this, and I'm gonna choose the, so let's select the width and let's drag it down something like this much. I guess it should be fine. And if you want to choose another color, you can just go over to color right over here and click, and let's click over here and let's choose an color something like red and click over here as well, or you can just delete that to get a specific color. And you can just adjust the width and you can play around with this value. So now we have what we basically need to do. We need a reference of this line renderer component, then we can set up. So to do so, let's go to script. So we need a reference of this line renderer component. So let's go to script and let's go to top of our class, and that field doesn't need to be public. Instead we're gonna make it private. So private, and the component we're looking for is line renderer. So we're gonna type line renderer, and we have to name it. So let's call it something like lr. And now what we will do, we will go to this start function. Basically start function get called in the start of the game. So in the start of the game, we just want to grab the reference of this line renderer component, then we can set the position. So that's why, so we will go to start function, and over here we will set lr equal to this dot get component, and the component we're looking for right over here is line renderer. So we're going to type line renderer and then make first bracket and then close that up with semicolon. So this right over here, this dot get component, it's basically just referencing itself, and then we just taking this line renderer component and we storing this line renderer component after getting the reference. As you can see, this dot get component, basically we have the reference now, and we stored that basically this line renderer component into this lr. Now we have the reference. So whenever we start the game, we don't want this line renderer to be active, we just want this to be disabled. Whenever this player game object, basically we click the left mouse button, at that moment we just want to be active, and some after some period of time we just want to disable that. So after getting the reference, what we're gonna do, we're gonna go to that lr dot, and we're gonna use this enable, and we will set it to false. Basically we just disabling that. So we just going over to this line renderer component, we just unchecking, but basically disabling, we just setting enable to false, as you can see. And after that, when we shoot, we just want to this line renderer now to be active. So that's why whenever we shoot, we're gonna do lr dot enable, and we will set equal to true, and then close that up with semicolon. And we need to set the position by now. So the first position, so shoot point we will store in the first index, and the second position, basically the ray, if the ray collide with this enemy game object, then wherever it's collide, we're gonna store that position into second index, and if that ray is not colliding, then second index position we're gonna set in the air, something like that basically. Let me explain by going over through code. So let's go to script, and we will set the first position. So lr, and we have to use this set position, and set position, and we're gonna store the first position into this 0 index. So 0 comma, and the first position gonna be the point where we just shooting out the ray, which is shoot point in our case. So we will type shoot point dot, sorry, shoot point, shoot point dot position, sorry, shoot point dot position, and then close that up with semicolon. So we're storing the shoot point dot position, basically this position into first this 0 index, and now second position we want to set wherever the ray collided with. So the ray just gonna collide with this enemy game object. So what we will do, so if hit is true, means the ray is really collided with the enemy game object, then what we're doing, we're just printing out the message. After printing out, what we want to do, we want to set the position as well. So we will set lr dot set position, basically the second position. So we will store the second position in this one index, and the second position gonna be hit dot point. Hit dot point basically means wherever the ray collide. So if the ray collide with this enemy game object, so hit dot point basically means the ray wherever the ray collided with, and we taking that position and we storing that position into this one index, as you can see. But let's suppose the ray don't collide with this enemy game object and it just shoot out in the air. So we still want to able to basically we still want to see the line renderer component, how much we shoot it far from this player game object. So else we will do, so we're gonna type else. So else means hit is false, means the ray just going through in the air. So what we will do in that situation, we also need to set the position, our line renderer. So we're gonna set lr dot set position, and the set position, so we're gonna store in this one index, and the set and the position just gonna be, so the ray not colliding with this enemy game object if the enemy is not here. So the ray just gonna shoot in the air, so we want to show that up. So what we will do, we will take the current position, which is shoot point dot position, means where we shooting from, and top of that we're gonna add in the direction shoot point we shooting the ray. So we're gonna type shoot point dot right, basically whatever direction shoot point is going. So basically this direction, and we will multiply that direction with the length of the ray or the distance. So we're going to multiply that with distance, and then close that up with semicolon. So the ray just gonna be shoot out in the air, and the distance gonna be the ray length. So firstly we take the current position, we take the position from where we shooting, and top of that we just adding in the direction shoot point is we just shooting out the ray, and we multiplying that with the length of the ray, as you can see. So we stored the second position in this one, if the ray is just going through in the air, if the enemy game object is not here, basically that is the thing. So control s to save our code. But if the ray is really colliding with that enemy game object, then we just setting the second position of that line renderer component, the position the in the position ray hit or the ray collided, we storing that position in this one index, as you can see. And if the ray is not colliding, then we just shooting out in the air, then we just taking the position from where we shooting out, and then we just multiplying the direction with this distance, as you can see. I hope you get the idea. Control s to save your code, and now let's move over to Unity. So make sure you just press down Control s to save your code. And now if we hit this play button in the top, and let's have a look on this. So if we just, as you can see, if we hit this pause button, so as soon as the game start, that line renderer component just get disabled. Why? Because if we go to script, we can see firstly we get the reference of the line renderer, and we just setting lr dot enable to false in the start of the game, so that's why. But if we hit this pause button and shoot, as you can see, basically now we're shooting. But the problem is that the ray or the line renderer not getting disabled after some period of time, so we need to set that disable. To do so, let's get out of play mode and let's go to script. To do so, what we will do, instead of using a normal function like this void, we're gonna use a I enumerator. Before you use this I enumerator, you need to make sure you just go to top of your class and include this namespace called using unity and using system dot collection. Make sure it's included in your class. If it's not, then do that. So why we using this, basically I enumerator just delays course. So if we want to do some specific things after some period of time, then we need to use this I enumerator instead of void. So this is a pretty weird function. Basically just write after it and you're gonna get hang of it. So so after doing all of these things, what we want to disable this lr now. So what we will do, we will wait for some second. So in order to wait or to do after some a period of time, we're gonna use this yell return null, yell return null, and close that up with semicolon. And after this, what we will do, we will set lr dot enable. Basically we just want to disable that line renderer component, so we will set equal to false, and then close that up with semicolon. So yell return null over here basically means we just waiting one frame, and after that, firstly we just doing these things, we shooting out the ray and we showing up, and then waiting one frame, and after waiting that, we just setting line renderer component one more time to disable. We just setting it enable to false. Basically we just disabling, and we cannot call like this shoot function. So this is a I enumerator function now. So what we have to, basically we cannot call normally. So before we call, we need to use this start coroutine. It's little bit weird, but we have to use. So start coroutine and the name of the function, which in our case now shoot. So we're gonna type in between this bracket shoot and make first bracket and then close that up with semicolon. So you need to use this start coroutine and the name of the function you need to type inside these brackets and make first brackets, and now it's gonna call out. So control S to save your script and then move over to Unity. So after one frame, that line renderer component just gonna be disabled after shooting out a ray from shoot point position. So we should able to see. So just wait for to compile, and once it's done, we should able to see. And now if we just click on this play button in the top, we should able to see that if we just click left mouse button, we just showing up the ray, and after one frame we just disabling that. So as you can see, I hope you get the idea. You can see that we shooting, if we click the left mouse button, the ray just shooting out, and after one frame it's just getting disabled. I hope you get the idea. So let's get out of play mode, and instead of printing out message, so if we go to script over here, you can just call a take damage function from enemy game object, and enemy just gonna take damage right away. I hope you get the idea. And lastly, thanks for watching this video.